Have you ever wondered what psychopathy actually looks like? This friend allegedly stole a fortune, lied about it, showed no remorse, and then when caught, wished his victim a happy Thanksgiving. What you're about to see, it's not a movie, it's an account of a real friendship that turned into a $120,000 theft. So today live, I'm going to be dissecting this viral video to see what insights we can learn about psychopathy. And trust me, as we get deeper into it, this behavior will make more sense, so you're going to want to stick around for the conclusion.
A few months ago, I discovered that one of my closest friends had stolen $120,000 from me. And as I dug into this, I found that this betrayal was way, way worse than even that. And I don't want this thing to happen to you. Though it's not a lot of people that do this, they tend to run this pattern over and over again, so that the number of people that are actually impacted by this is far, far greater. So if you see any aspect of yourself in this story, I hope that this wakes you up and prevents you from experiencing what I did.
So what he said is true. We see with some personality disorders, particularly antisocial personality disorder, as well as psychopathic personality disorder, and also some aspects of narcissistic personality disorder, that these individuals will systemically victimize people.
I start logging into accounts that I haven't been in for years. The other account that I look in is this crypto account, because several years prior, I'd had an employee and this close friend of mine who was named Ivan Hidalgo purchase a bunch of crypto on my behalf. I'd given him $12,000 to buy Bitcoin and Ethereum, and I just hadn't looked at it. Now, the good news was crypto had done what crypto did in that period of time, which is that $12,000 had 10x to about 120 grand. And my heart falls off of a cliff because this graph falls off of a cliff. I watch it go up, 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 up to $120,000, and then instantly, boom, $45. And my heart is racing, and I'm going, what the heck is going on here? As I try to discern what's happening.
That's crazy.
And as I hover over the transactions, I see that 6 months prior to this login, in the middle of the night, in a series of transactions, all of the money in my account was moved to other accounts. Immediately, I think there's only one person that this really could have been, because Ivan bought this for me. And when he bought it for me, he sent me a photo of the seed phrase, which is effectively the crypto password, right? It's a list of words that if you lose access to this ledger, you can still get access to your account.
So the first, I just wanted to quickly go over what even is psychopathy. So psychopathy is defined, or is summarized in a number of ways. So the first summary I'm just going to read is by Cook and colleagues. And what Cook says is basically it has 6 main traits. So there's domineering, interpersonally, and exploitative. They have a sense of importance and a sense of invulnerability. So they have a twisted perception of the self. Then for number 3, they lack emotional expression, or maybe they even there's evidence that they also lack just emotional feeling. The fourth is that they have a difficulty attaching to others. This is actually also why psychopaths report childhood loneliness. The fifth is that they're suspicious of others, and then that they're also, they tend to be impulsive. Now you might have heard some conceptualizations that psychopaths plan, and that's probably because they lack emotional activation, and so that lets them emotionally detach and not act emotionally. But they will also typically act impulsively. That's why a lot of psychopathic serial killers, for example, will be opportunistic killers. Another outline is by Hare, and this uses the PCLR, the Psychopathic Checklist Revised Edition. And the way Hare basically groups it is that he groups it 2 factors: personality and just dispositional style. So like what their style is with emotions and interpersonal and just their personality. And then another one is their past history. And so their personality can be subdivided. It can be divided into narcissistic traits, so like grandiosity, need for other people to acknowledge your greatness, and then lack of empathy, stuff like that. And then it can also be, and it's also like glibness and superficial charm. Then the second B of factor 1 is sort of like histrionic traits. So it's like inappropriate emotionality, and then they have a need for attention, and then a seduction of other people. For factor 2, it's divided into like historical lack of caring for other people or other people's needs, and then the second is just criminal behavior. And so one thing I wanted to note is that I can't say particularly that Ivan, because he's a real person, that he's a psychopath. First of all, I don't have direct experience with him. Second of all, I'm only going to be going off the base of this story. So that's just a small disclaimer before I want to keep going.
Now, this was especially naive, and you'll see this pattern over and over again, because about 1.5 years prior, I'd fired him for lying to me and gray area stealing, which is no longer a gray area. I now see what actually happened.
So there you go. We have that behavior component of he already has a history of stealing from Charlie.
But I fired him for that. So we weren't in contact at this point in time. We were no longer cool with one another. I go to my crypto friends, and they help me with this website called Arkham Intelligence. And they say, you put any crypto wallet in here, and it will show you all of the interactions that this wallet has had publicly. As I look, and his literal name is present on this page. Investor Ivan is staring at me. His OpenSea NFT account that I witnessed him access from my apartment is listed as having interacted with the account that took the money. So I feel a huge wave of relief, but also like, oh crap, no more deception here. This is what happened. So I draft this text in this email, which is to him, hey, I know exactly what happened on this night. I know exactly what you did. Send this crypto back and this will be the end of it. If you don't, there's going to be a civil and a criminal case and you're looking at potentially years in jail because, I've done the whole ChatGPT. What could likely happen from this? This is not a small amount of money. A significant amount of time goes by, like a day or two, when I get a response from him that is, hey, I'm on vacation, not sure what you're talking about, essentially. And I'll put receipts up so you can check it out if you'd like. I write back, you know what I'm talking about. Don't pretend. Send me the money. I'm hearing through my co-founder who I'm discussing this deal with at the time that he really doesn't know because he's talking to him and saying, I've never heard of this. This is so strange. I haven't heard from years. So weird. I'm on vacation. I'm busy. I can't even handle this. And he's treating it seemingly like it's not a big deal. So I continue to write and I'm talking to friends who tell me that I'm going to have to show him hard evidence because in one of his texts to me, he says, these are huge accusations. If you have any hard proof, I'd like to see it, which is a weird thing to say. Like, how would I have hard proof of something that didn't happen? But I do.
This is you, Ivan. This is your wallet. It's only got like 30 transactions in the last 4 years, and there's multiple instances of you interacting with Investor Ivan on OpenSea, which is your OpenSea NFT account that I can tie directly to you. The options that you have are continue to deny this, bring that denial to court, and see how it goes. I wouldn't recommend it. You're going to lose both the civil and criminal case, and then you're looking at actual jail time. I don't recommend it. I'm willing to do that. The other option is that you can send me back the money now.
And what do you know? He gets this video and remembers, oh yeah. And the process begins of him sending me this money back, which I was able to recover in full, except that it took, some teeth pulling in order to get him to do it, obviously. And he would not refund me for the cost of the Nano Ledger, but he did wish me a happy Thanksgiving.
So what we see here is Ivan turned out lied. He just wanted to see about what kind of evidence he had before he had to give up $120,000. Something interesting about the Thanksgiving line is that, first of all, Ivan shows no embarrassment. This is evidence towards psychopathic personality disorder because they don't feel embarrassed when they're caught in lies. Sometimes they will return angry, trying to intimidate the person to back off. But in this case, Ivan didn't do that. I think he understood that he was really in hot water and his best approach was to be glib and superficial, which is also consistent with psychopaths. In terms of, he also shows like he has lack of empathy, he has lack of any sort of remorse for the harm that he had caused. Oh, he didn't say sorry. It just seems very superficial. When you say sorry, it just sounds like it was really an honest mistake. It doesn't sound like this guy stole $120,000 from him. Something interesting is like also lack of emotional display, which is what psychopaths have, as I mentioned earlier. He didn't accept responsibility. We're also going to see this later, where he pins this on this just being a mistake, like it's misplaced.
Which seems strange after everything that happened. And just for context, this was someone who had been to my house for multiple Thanksgivings. This was my genuinely second closest friend after my co-founder. This was someone who I took to my sister's wedding as my +1, even though it was like a kind of a goofy thing to do. He slept on my couch for months at a time. Full access to everything in my life and my heart, genuinely. Like so much care and affection and trust was given to him. So that happy Thanksgiving line, it just cuts even like, holy shit, was any of this real? And that thought keeps echoing in my head because yes, I have the money, but now I can think, this guy's been hired for years. He had intimate access to everything in my life, including my business. So I have to go look. So I start going into Ivan's old email account. And the first thing that I find is seemingly ridiculous lies. Like one of the things that's in there is a lease agreement for the apartment that he'd been living in. And he told me that the apartment was like a certain amount of money, let's say X per month. But this lease agreement has it listed as 1/2 of that amount of money. Why lie about that? And I started to see there were so many of these like unnecessary, small, for seemingly no purpose lies that I was able to corroborate through this email and through speaking to other people about this.
So what's interesting here again is pathological lying. And why might a psychopath lie? Well, they tend to lie for duping delight. Like I mentioned earlier, a psychopath is domineering, so they enjoy humiliating other people. And it's helpful for them to humiliate people even when it's not socially allowed to, right? So no one knows, but in their head, they feel superior. Another reason they might lie is for aggrandizement. And another reason they might lie is for instrumental gain. So sometimes, especially we're going to see this later with a parasitic lifestyle, where psychopaths might lie that they're doing way worse than they actually are, just to get some instrumental support.
I also started to talk to people, and I found that there was this pattern of behaving differently around people of status and power. So with me, I experienced him as very generous, very kind. My brother was friends with him, but he'd stay at the apartment. But my brother was constantly complaining that he was not paying for coffees, that sticking my brother with the bill, that he was stealing his clothes, even though he would tell him not to do it, and sort of just shrugging it off. And I was like, oh, they're just bickering. It's like, like they were almost like brothers themselves, like me and my brother, whatever, it's fine. And I realized that when I stepped away from the business, this same thing happened, which is now that I didn't have power, our relationship completely shifted. He stopped answering my calls. He stopped talking, like it was just over.
So this goes one-on-one with interpersonal exploitativeness, where they look at people as objects to be exploited. They don't look at people as people to be empathetic towards, or they cannot form emotional connections with people. This is also reminiscent of a parasitic lifestyle, which is also a criterion within the PCLR. So that's how they screen for psychopathy.
So this pattern of behaving one way in the face of status and power and genuinely another for others is something to pay attention to and to listen to the stories of people around you who relate this to you.
That's interesting that Charlie says about listening to stories of other people, because Cook mentions in his chapter with his colleagues that even for clinicians who are diagnosing psychopathic personality disorder, PPD, that they should consult with their colleagues, because the psychopath can even pull the wool over their eyes, and they're trained clinicians, trained psychologists, right? It's particularly in psychopathy. Isn't that so interesting? So Charlie's entirely right. It's good to check in with other people. This also shows evidence towards a superficial charm that he has. You'd think that Charlie's pretty close with his brother, and he mentions that. But this guy's able to weave separation between them two, because he's just so charismatic. He has that ability. He learns how to manipulate people.
See, at the time when he was hired, I think in 2018, I was very busy with videos, and my co-founder did this hire. He ran the process, and I came in at the end for like the final which of these two people. But I hadn't seen any of the references. I hadn't really seen the application. I hadn't seen there was a story that he had sold his digital marketing agency, Ivan had done this, to a larger digital marketing agency for 3 million Canadian, which is why he was wanting a new era of his life. He wanted to be a mentee essentially at a larger business, but had all of these digital marketing skills and provided tax documents and references and weird looking like income forms. But all of this had come in. And so I finally get eyes on this and I see, oh shit. As I start to really look at it, at first glance, these are tax documents. They're like signed, they're filled out. Except the business number and the year is listed as, well, this is like a 2016 tax document. But when I run that business number in Ontario's business lookup and find the actual business, the business isn't founded until September of 2017. So I'm looking at a tax document that doesn't correspond with public records.
Look how
he's written in his application, like, this is the name of the company I sold to, but I can't let you talk to them right now.
Psychopaths also tend to give elaborate
it wasn't even some weird thing. But when I call that company and say, hey, did you guys purchase a business for roughly 3 million Canadian in 2018? Let me put you in with the CEO. So he emails me and says, hey, how can I help? And I explain the situation. And within like a 5-minute phone call and 2 hours of waiting, I get back an email from the CEO that says, I do not know what this is. I don't know what you're talking about. So the entire founding story that predicated this business relationship, this friendship that was, I thought, like so close.
But how does he have the gall to just lie so blatantly? And that's part of what we talked earlier. Psychopaths tend to have a sense of invulnerability. And so they think that they won't get caught. And that goes hand in hand with them being special, right? Because they're so special that they wouldn't be caught. And so they do these like huge lies.
I would genuinely, like, I didn't care about money. If I'd lost money, which I lost a tremendous amount working with him because he was not effective at his job, obviously, because he hadn't done the things that he said that he'd done. That didn't matter because he was my friend.
Again, about the friend thing, for Charlie, he says that they're friends, so Charlie wants to help him. For a psychopath, they wouldn't want, or they cannot interpersonally connect, right, as we talked about. They don't see that he doesn't see him as a friend, he just sees him as an object to be exploited. He cannot interpersonally connect to someone. He has no attachment system to other people.
And so this caused a tremendous amount of pain, but also a lot of how the hell did this happen? Like, what was occurring in me that I created space for this? And there's a number of things. I told you some of the small ones, but the real one that I want you to pay attention for is if you don't trust your own sense of distrust, because I did not. When I thought that someone was lying to me or wronging me, particularly in a huge way, I would start to feel like I was mean. I was being bad. How could I accuse that person of that? Especially in the face of someone who double, tripled, and quadrupled down for this. Because instead of saying, you know, we disagree and therefore you're gonna go, it was, you know, you say this and I don't feel it, therefore I need to give you more opportunities to show yourself to me. I need to elevate your position. I need to explain myself more clearly. I need to give you a different project because if you couldn't succeed in that one, but you say this is true about you, I must not be using you effectively. And so for the next several years, I promoted endlessly. Like, he would fail and I would give him another promotion to incentivize him to do better in this way of like, what have I not done right here that is making this apparently very effective tool not work? And that was how he had access to things like, I was like, oh, well, maybe he can help me with crypto investing. All of this came because things weren't working, because I was ashamed of my own sense of distrust, because I didn't want to have the experience of sitting in front of someone and saying, I don't believe you. This feels completely false to me and I don't want to work with you any longer.
And I think that Ivan has probably sensed this because there is actually research where psychopaths, they can tell better than chance about people who have been victimized before and who haven't, and normal people can't, because they have a perception of how to tell like weak people apart. And what's interesting about that is it's kind of like a wolf, right, to a rabbit. You just have this predator drive. They can just understand. It's pretty interesting. And so he probably sees Charlie as a sucker and he punts him out.
And I did not want to see things because I did not want to have to go it alone for any period of time. And this is so critical. I see this constantly in romantic relationships and close partnerships. From the third party, you'll be standing there like reading somebody's text exchange or the history of how their boyfriend went out and had this really suspicious activity, and it'll be really obvious that something is off. But you'll watch someone contort themselves in order to believe the story, because what is really driving them is this terror of being alone. And so they'll confront the person and basically allow them to lie to their face because it soothes that feeling of now I have to go it alone. And so just ask yourself, is that occurring in my life? Am I taking pathological responsibility? Am I terrified of being alone but not acknowledging and therefore lowering my standard? What you will do in these circumstances is avoid. You will avoid looking at the text. You will avoid digging into the references. You will avoid going back and saying, hey, that was a weird story. I'm going to actually get external verification of that. You will avoid all of that, and that will feel mean or bad if you were to do it. Pay attention.
That's called confirmation bias.
And so I hope that those yellow red flags are sticking out to you. I hope, and one other thing I should say is that if you've known me over the years and we've interacted and you've felt that I have explicitly or implicitly vouched for Ivan as a worker or anything, I just want to make clear that I do not. I do not. If that's not already evident, I unfortunately expect that this pattern could continue for two reasons. One, after all of this theft, when I'm in the business, I log into the Instagram account to find that there's logins coming from the country that he's in, and I go in and see that even after all the theft and the return, he apparently is liking his own photos from the Charisma on Command account, which signals to me that this pattern of like
so
image construction has not stopped. And also, I reached out to him to be a part of this video. I gave him the questions that I had. I told him that the way that I wanted this video to go was for him to tell his story on screen and to investigate where this pattern comes from, and hopefully that it would be like a healing moment, which was perhaps naive but wishful thinking of me. He said that our interactions in the last 2 years had been negative and stressful. These are the interactions where my money has been stolen and finally returned. And that's why he didn't want to do it and really refused to answer any of the questions that I'd asked and then blocked me. So that's what I'd like you to know about that. That's my heart. I just wanted to share it with you.
That's interesting because that's another aspect of psychopathy where they lack remorse. And the focus usually is when you confront them that they put a stress on their own suffering, even though they're in the wrong. Like if the literary Ivan stole $120,000, he says, well, when you called me out for that, that made me feel bad. So it's actually all on you. Look at that. Look at that manipulation tactic. Yeah, so there you go. So we just took a look at what psychopathy looks like. we're getting a little group going, a journey towards understanding psychology. So if you want to join, you can always think about that. I mentioned some narcissism in psychopathic personality disorder, and if that's interesting to you, I actually talk about narcissism in this video here. I think it's going to be somewhere on the screen. If you want to learn about narcissism in particularly and the psychology of a stalker, then that video is pretty interesting to watch. All right, well, thank you so much.